In the vast expanse of space, aboard the colossal station known as the Galactic Center, 3,000 representatives from various species gathered in the grand chamber. The room's architecture blended organic curves with crystalline structures, creating an atmosphere of power and authority. The chamber's walls shifted with holographic displays showing star maps, planetary data, and the current topic of discussion, a small blue planet in the Orion Arm. High Counselor Li Daowan stood at the central podium, his figure commanding attention despite his relatively modest height compared to the towering Centaurians around him. His dark, formal robes contrasted with the silver scales of his colleagues, who watched with barely hidden disdain as he presented his findings. Esteemed members of the hegemony, Daowan's voice carried across the chamber, enhanced by subtle audio fields. Our exploration fleet has discovered a new world in Sector 7. The inhabitants call it Earth. He gestured, and a holographic image of Earth appeared above the assembly, clouds swirling across its blue surface. The Centaurian representatives shifted in their seats, their scale-covered skin catching the light. Some whispered among themselves, while others made notes on their data tablets. The atmosphere in the chamber was one of mild interest, mixed with obvious superiority. Counselor Park Jin, known for her sharp tongue and sharper political moves, rose from her seat. Her iridescent robes caught the light, creating patterns that seemed to move with a life of their own. High Counselor, she spoke, her voice carrying a note of amusement. You've called this assembly for this, another primitive world. Her lips curled into what passed for a smile among her kind. I see from the data they've barely reached their moon. Their technology is crude, their society fragmented. They still fight among themselves over resources and ideology. Laughter rippled through the chamber, a mix of different sounds from various species. The Arcturians clicked their mandibles in amusement, while the gaseous nebulons pulsed with mirth-indicating frequencies. Perhaps, Park Jin continued, clearly enjoying the attention, we should add them to our collection of protectorates. They might prove useful for basic resource extraction, at least. More laughter followed her words, louder this time. Among the assembled representatives, Kim Suho sat quietly, his young features focused on the holographic display. As the newest and youngest member of the council, he had learned to observe more than speak. While others saw only a primitive world, Suho noticed details others missed. The rapid progression from steam power to nuclear physics in mere centuries, the exponential growth in computational capability, the unusual adaptability of human technology. The data scrolling across his personal display told a fascinating story. Earth had progressed from horse-drawn carriages to spaceflight in less than 200 years, a pace almost unheard of in galactic history. Most species took millennia to make similar advances. Suho's fingers moved across his tablet, marking certain data points for later review. High Counselor Daewon nodded diplomatically at Park Jin's suggestion. The Exploration Committee recommends offering Earth provisional membership in the hegemony. We can guide their development, ensure they follow proper protocols, and integrate them into our resource distribution network. More representatives spoke up, each offering their own variations on the same theme. Earth was primitive. Earth needed guidance. Earth would make a fine addition to their collection of subordinate worlds. The chamber buzzed with conversations about how best to approach these newcomers, how to present the hegemony's authority in a way that would ensure compliance without resistance. Suho continued his analysis, noting the humans' peculiar tendency to take existing technology and modify it in unexpected ways. Their history showed countless examples of turning peaceful tools into weapons, then transforming those weapons back into tools for progress. It was a pattern he had never seen before in any other species. As the assembly moved to vote on Earth's status, Suho kept his concerns to himself. Let them underestimate this young species, he thought. Let them dismiss Earth's potential. Sometimes the smallest worlds held the biggest surprises, and something told him Earth would prove to be very surprising indeed. The vote passed with near unanimity. Earth would be offered provisional membership in the hegemony, a generous gesture that amounted to little more than colonial status. As the assembly dispersed, Suho made a final note in his personal records. Watch Earth closely. They are not what they seem. Little did the hegemony know, their decision that day would mark the beginning of their own decline. Earth, far from being the simple primitive world they imagined, would soon show them just how wrong their assumptions were. The United Nations General Assembly Hall was packed to capacity, with representatives from every nation focused intently on the podium. Ambassador Song Harry stood tall, her traditional diplomatic attire chosen carefully to project both respect for Earth's heritage and readiness for galactic politics. The morning sunlight streamed through the high windows, casting long shadows across the assembly floor. Distinguished representatives of Earth, she began, her voice clear and measured. I present to you the hegemony's offer of provisional membership in their galactic community. She paused, allowing the gravity of the moment to settle. The entire planet watched through various broadcasts, all eyes on this historic moment. In the front row, the hegemony representatives sat with barely concealed smugness. Their tall, silvery forms and shimmering robes stood out sharply against the more modest human attire. They expected gratitude, submission, perhaps even celebration. What they received was something quite different. Earth acknowledges the hegemony's generous offer, Hayri continued, emphasizing the word generous just enough to make some of the more observant aliens shift uncomfortably. We propose a period of cultural and technological exchange before formalizing any agreements. In a secure room beneath the UN building, Lee Minho watched the proceedings on a high-definition screen. Around him, banks of quantum computers hummed quietly, their revolutionary design hidden behind what appeared to be conventional hardware. His team of scientists and engineers worked silently, monitoring the real breakthrough, a system that could match and potentially exceed hegemony computational capabilities. Notice how they're reacting to the word exchange, Minho commented to his deputy. The aliens in the assembly hall had indeed stirred at that word, their scaled skin flickering with colors that their cultural advisors had learned indicated surprise and mild offense. Back in the assembly hall, Harry outlined Earth's proposed approach to joining the galactic community. Each point was carefully crafted to seem reasonable while buying Earth more time. The hegemony representatives grew increasingly restless as they realized this would not be the simple submission they had expected. After the formal session, Hayri made her way to the secure facility where Minho and his team worked. The underground complex was a maze of laboratories and research centers, all disguised as standard government offices. Security was tight but unobtrusive. Another technology Earth had refined beyond what the hegemony suspected possible. They're getting impatient, Harry reported, settling into a chair in Minho's office. The lead representative hinted rather strongly that we're being ungrateful. Minho smiled, pulling up a holographic display that would look primitive to hegemony eyes, but actually represented technology far beyond their understanding. Good, let them think we're just being stubborn primitives. Meanwhile, look at this. He gestured, and the display showed the latest breakthrough, a quantum communication system that could potentially intercept and decode hegemony transmissions. How long can we keep this hidden? Harry asked, studying the technical readouts with practiced ease. As long as we need to, Minho replied. We've developed our technology along completely different lines than theirs. They're looking for signs of progress that match their own development path. They won't recognize our advances because they don't match their expectations. Their conversation was interrupted by a notification. Another hegemony ship had entered orbit, bringing more advisors to help Earth transition into their proper place in galactic society. Both Harry and Minho shared a knowing look. Let them send their advisors, Minho said, bringing up another display showing Earth's hidden defensive capabilities. Everyone they send gives us more opportunity to study their technology while they underestimate ours. Hayri nodded, standing to prepare for her next meeting. They think they're here to teach us, she said with a slight smile. They don't realize they're actually helping us learn their weaknesses. As she left the facility, Minho returned to his work, supervising projects that would have shocked the hegemony representatives had they known about them. Earth's strategy was working perfectly. While the aliens focused on what they expected to see, humanity's true capabilities remained hidden, growing stronger each day. In orbit, the hegemony ships maintained their watch over Earth, their crews confident in their technological superiority. None of them suspected that the primitive systems they detected below were elaborate decoys, or that Earth's real technological revolution was happening right under their noses. The demands arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning, delivered with the smug confidence that had become typical of hegemony communications. Counselor Kang Do-hyun's holographic form towered over the Earth delegation in the newly constructed Galactic Affairs Center in Geneva, his scaled features arranged in what he probably thought was a benevolent expression. "Earth has been most fortunate in receiving our guidance," Kang announced, his translator converting his words into perfect English. "Now it is time to show proper gratitude. The hegemony requires an increase in resource production, 300% above current quotas." Ambassador Song Hae-ri sat at the conference table, her expression carefully neutral as she made notes on her datapad. Around her, other Earth representatives maintained similar composed expressions, though a few exchanged quick glances. "Counselor Kang," Hae-ri spoke, her voice steady. "Such an increase would strain our current production capabilities. We would need time to expand our operations." Kang's scales rippled with what Earth's sinologists had learned to recognize as amusement. "Of course, we understand your limitations. The hegemony is prepared to provide additional oversight and technology to assist in meeting these new quotas." In the observation room behind a one-way window, Lee Min-ho watched the exchange with several military officials. "They're finally showing their true intentions," he murmured, tapping commands into his control panel. "Time for our first reveal." Back in the conference room, Hae-ri was speaking again. "Perhaps a demonstration of our current capabilities would be helpful, Counselor." She nodded to an aide, who activated a holographic display in the center of the room. "What is this?" Kang demanded, his scales now showing patterns of annoyance. "A live feed from our Lunar Base 3, Hae-ri explained. The display showed a large installation on the moon's surface. "We've been developing some interesting technologies there." As they watched, a shield of rippling energy surrounded the base. The gravitic field was visible as a slight distortion in the space around the structure, exactly like the shields used by hegemony vessels. Kang's scales lost their sheen. "Impossible," he sputtered, leaning forward to study the display more closely. "This is some kind of trick. You're centuries away from gravitic field technology." "I assure you, Counselor, this is quite real," Hae-ri replied. "Would you like a closer look?" With another signal, the view changed to show the shield generators. Their design was notably different from hegemony technology, more elegant and compact. "Our scientists took a different approach than the standard hegemony method," Hae-ri explained, her tone deliberately casual. "We found ways to generate the fields using less energy and fewer resources." Kang's translator couldn't quite keep up with his rapid speech as he demanded explanations, his scales now showing patterns that indicated alarm and confusion. "This technology was not provided to you. How did you develop this without our knowledge?" "Earth has always been resourceful, Counselor," Hae-ri answered. "We've learned much from our association with the hegemony, but we've also continued our own research paths." In the observation room, Min-ho smiled as he watched Kang's reaction. The alien counselor was rapidly sending messages, presumably to his superiors. Earth's carefully maintained facade of technological dependence had just shown its first crack, and the hegemony was realizing their primitive protectorate wasn't quite what they had assumed. "The resource quotas will need to be revised," Kang finally said, his earlier arrogance replaced by careful formality. "We will need to discuss this development with the High Council." "Of course," Hae-ri replied smoothly. "Earth looks forward to continuing our productive relationship with the hegemony." The subtle emphasis on productive wasn't lost on anyone in the room. After Kane's hologram disappeared, the Earth delegation remained seated, They all knew this was a turning point. The hegemony would now be watching them more closely, but they had also been forced to recognize that Earth wasn't the simple primitive world they had thought. How long before they realized this was just the tip of the iceberg? One of the military officials asked Minho. Long enough, he replied, bringing up displays showing Earth's other hidden advances. We've just changed the game. They'll be so focused on figuring out how we manage the gravitic shields, they won't be looking for our other developments. In orbit, the hegemony ships adjusted their scanning patterns, now paying much closer attention to Earth's activities. But they were looking for signs of more gravitic technology, not the quantum computing centers hidden in ordinary-looking buildings, or the revolutionary propulsion systems being tested in underwater facilities. Earth had shown its first card, carefully chosen to shake the hegemony's confidence while keeping their true capabilities hidden. The spark had been lit, and change was coming to the galaxy, whether the hegemony was ready or not. The secret meeting took place in an abandoned mining facility on Proxima B, far from the watchful eyes of hegemony sensors. Kim Ji-woo, leader of the Proxima colonies, sat across from Earth's special envoy in a roughly carved chamber lit by emergency lights. Your gravitic shield technology, Ji-woo said, leaning forward eagerly, it's completely different from the hegemony's approach. How did you manage it? The Earth envoy smiled. We simply asked different questions. The hegemony has been doing things the same way for so long, they've stopped looking for alternatives. News of Earth's technological breakthrough had spread quickly through the galaxy, despite the hegemony's attempts to minimize its significance. The Proxima colonies, tired of centuries of resource exploitation, had been the first to reach out secretly to Earth. In another part of the galaxy, the Arcturus Federation was experiencing its own awakening. Choi Yun stood before the Federation's governing body, her voice firm as she questioned policies that had gone unchallenged for generations. Why must we process all our rare minerals through hegemony facilities? She asked. Earth has shown there are other ways to develop technology. Why are we bound by these ancient restrictions? The Federation Hall erupted in heated discussion. Some called for caution, others for immediate change. The simple fact that such debate was happening at all marked a dramatic shift in the galactic political landscape. Back in the hegemony's Grand Chamber, Councillor Park Jin addressed the High Council with growing concern. Her usually immaculate scales showed signs of stress as she presented her report. Earth's influence is spreading, she warned. The Proxima colonies are refusing our mining quotas. The Arcturus Federation is demanding trade reforms. Even the Centauri worlds are beginning to question our authority. The chamber, once filled with confident laughter at Earth's expense, now held a tense silence. The data displays showed a pattern that couldn't be ignored, system after system showing signs of resistance to hegemony control. They'd done more than develop new technology, Park Jin continued. They've shown others it's possible to chart their own course. This disrupts the natural order we've maintained for millennia. In a secure facility on Mars, Earth's leaders monitored these developments with careful attention. They had expected the hegemony's reaction, but the response from other worlds had exceeded their hopes. The hegemony's grip was already weakening, one analyst reported. Earth just showed everyone else they could let go. Messages arrived daily from various worlds, each carefully encrypted to avoid hegemony detection. Some sought technical advice, others diplomatic support. Earth responded to each with measured care, building a network of allies while appearing to maintain their role as a simple provisional member of the hegemony. The Proxima colonies began implementing their own versions of Earth's technologies, adapted to their unique needs. The Arcturus Federation started developing independent trade routes, bypassing traditional hegemony controls. Hegemony observers reported increasing signs of unrest across their territory. Worlds that had been docile for centuries were now asking questions, demanding changes, refusing orders. And behind it all, they saw Earth's influence. We should have crushed them when we first discovered them, one hegemony counselor raged during a private session. It's too late for that now, another replied. They've shown themselves more capable than we imagined, and they've given others hope. That's far more dangerous than any technology. In the Proxima mining facility, Ji Wu and the Earth envoy concluded their meeting. Plans were made, agreements reached, all hidden from hegemony surveillance. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy as more worlds reached out to Earth, seeking alternatives to centuries of hegemony control. The tension was building throughout the galaxy. The hegemony's perfect order was cracking, and through those cracks, change was flowing. Earth had become more than just a troublesome primitive world. It had become a symbol of possibility, a proof that the old order could be challenged. As Park Jin concluded her report to the High Council, her final words carried a weight that all present could feel. If we don't act soon, everything we've built will crumble. Earth isn't just defying us. They're showing others how to defy us too. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The galaxy was changing, and the hegemony's power was no longer absolute. The question was no longer if there would be conflict, but when, and whether the hegemony's centuries of dominance could survive it. The hegemony fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, 500 warships strong. Their silver hulls gleamed in the distant sunlight as they moved into attack formation. Admiral Park Jin stood on her flagship's bridge, watching tactical displays with cold satisfaction. "Send the message," she commanded. "Let Earth see the price of defiance." The fleet's appearance didn't trigger the panic she expected. Instead, Earth's orbital stations continued their usual activities, while civilian ships calmly moved to designated safe zones. The lack of visible fear or chaos made the Admiral's scales ripple with unease. In the underground command center beneath the Pacific Ocean, Lee Min-ho watched the hegemony fleet's approach on massive holographic displays. Around him, his team worked with practiced efficiency, their faces illuminated by the soft blue glow of quantum interface terminals. "They're following exactly the attack pattern we predicted," one operator reported, moving into standard hegemony assault formation. Min-ho nodded, checking the status of Earth's hidden defense network. Years of preparation were about to be tested. "Let them get closer," he ordered. "Wait until they're fully committed." Admiral Park Jin's confidence grew as her fleet moved deeper into the system without resistance. "Earth's defenses are even weaker than our intelligence suggested," she commented to her bridge crew. "This will be over quickly." The first sign that something was wrong came when her tactical officers reported unusual energy readings from what appeared to be debris fields. Before they could analyze the data, hundreds of small objects activated throughout the fleet formation. "What are those?" Park Jin demanded, watching new signals appear on her displays. Her answer came in the form of focused energy pulses that emerged from the seemingly harmless debris. Each pulse matched the exact frequency of her ship shields, but instead of blocking energy, they amplified it, turning the protective fields into weapons against their own vessels. "Impossible," Park Jin shouted as ship after ship reported shield failures. "How did they?" Her words were cut off as a transmission cut through all their communications channels. Lee Min-ho's voice was calm but carried unmistakable authority. "You assumed we would follow your path of technological development," he stated. "Instead, we forged our own. Your shield frequencies were predictable because you haven't truly innovated in centuries. You've only refined existing technologies." The hegemony fleet's formation broke as ships tried to adapt to this unprecedented attack. But Earth's defense network had more surprises. Quantum-linked drones appeared seemingly from nowhere, using the hegemony's own targeting data against them. "Fall back," Park Jin ordered, watching in horror as her mighty fleet was systematically dismantled by technology she couldn't even understand. "Full retreat." From his command center, Min-ho watched the hegemony ships turn to flee. "Should we pursue?" an officer asked. "No," Min-ho replied. "Let them run. Let them tell others what they saw here." But first, he activated the transmitter again. "Admiral Park Jin, know this. Earth will no longer submit to hegemony rule. We offer you one chance to leave peacefully. The next time you enter our system with hostile intent, your ships won't be allowed to retreat. The remaining hegemony vessels accelerated away from Earth, their once proud formation now a chaotic scramble for safety. As they fled, Earth's true defensive capabilities revealed themselves. Massive platforms emerging from cloaked positions, arrays of satellites shifting from invisible to visible spectrum, all displaying technology far beyond what the hegemony had believed possible. In the aftermath, Min Ho's team began assessing the engagement's results. Not a single Earth vessel or installation had been lost. The defense network had performed even better than simulations had predicted. Send word to our allies, Min Ho instructed. The test was successful. Earth's defense systems can counter hegemony technology effectively. It's time for the next phase. Across the galaxy, the news spread quickly. The mighty hegemony fleet had been defeated not by superior numbers or brute force, but by innovation they hadn't believed possible. Earth had not just defended itself, it had revealed that the hegemony's technological superiority was an illusion. In the hegemony's grand chamber, Park Jin's report caused an uproar. The council that had once laughed at Earth's primitive status now faced the reality that their power base was built on stagnant technology and false assumptions. Earth had changed the rules of the game. The breaking point had been reached, and there was no going back to the old order. The galaxy watched and waited to see what would happen next as humanity prepared to help other worlds break free from hegemony control. Alarms blared through the Proxima colony's main dome as hegemony warships appeared in orbit. The colonial governor prepared to surrender, following centuries of ingrained submission. But this time was different. Earth defense ships emerged from stealth positions, their advanced weapons already targeting the hegemony vessels. In Earth's global command center, Noun Hansol watched the battle unfold across multiple holographic displays. Proxima defense successful, he reported to the assembled leaders. The hegemony fleet is retreating. That makes 3 successful liberations this week. Song Harry nodded from her position at the diplomatic station, where streams of encrypted messages flowed in from dozens of worlds. The Arcturus Federation has officially declared independence, she announced. Their defense systems are already online. Earth's successful resistance had sparked hope across the galaxy. What began as quiet defiance had erupted into open revolution. Systems that had been under hegemony control for thousands of years were rising up, armed with Earth's innovations and protected by human military support. The Centaur worlds are requesting immediate assistance, Hansol said, studying a new tactical display. Their main shipyards have declared independence, but they're facing hegemony retaliation. Send the 3rd Fleet, he ordered, and activate the quantum defense network we installed last month. His fingers moved across the control panel, coordinating movements across light years of space. In her diplomatic center, Song Harry led negotiations between newly freed worlds. We need to establish supply lines, she explained to representatives from a dozen systems. The hegemony will try to strangle independent worlds through economic warfare. The revolution spread faster than anyone had expected. Worlds that had been silent for centuries found their voices. Trade routes that had been controlled by the hegemony for generations were now run by free worlds. Earth's technology, developed along completely different lines than the hegemony's, proved impossible to counter. They expected us to be predictable, Hansol told his commanders during a strategy session. They thought we would develop technology the same way they did. Their entire defense doctrine is based on fighting mirror images of themselves. Instead, Earth had created weapons and defenses that approached problems from completely new angles. Quantum entanglement communications that couldn't be intercepted. Gravity manipulation that worked on principles the hegemony had never considered. Defense systems that adapted and evolved during battle. The hegemony's response was predictable. They sent massive fleets to crush the rebellion. But their ships, unchanged in design for centuries, faced weapons they couldn't counter and defenses they couldn't breach. World after world slipped from their grasp. Sector 7 is completely free, Hansol announced one morning. The hegemony has withdrawn all forces. Their supply lines couldn't handle our quantum disruption fields. HFY's diplomatic corps worked around the clock, helping newly freed worlds establish governments and trade agreements. "We're not replacing the hegemony," she repeatedly told worried representatives. "We're helping you stand on your own." The revolution wasn't just military. Centuries of hegemony cultural control began to crack. Art, music, and ideas that had been suppressed for generations flourished. Trade routes that had been restricted opened up. Technologies that had been monopolized were now freely shared. In the hegemony's grand chamber, now half empty as more representatives declared independence, the remaining council members faced a harsh reality. Their power, based on technological superiority and cultural dominance, was crumbling. "How many systems have we lost?" one councillor demanded. "It would be faster to list the ones we still control," another replied bitterly. Back on Earth, Han Sol and HFY met to discuss the next phase. The revolution had succeeded beyond their hopes, but they knew their real work was just beginning. "Freedom is easy compared to what comes next," HFY said, reviewing reports from newly independent worlds. "Now we have to help build something better than what the hegemony created." Han Sol nodded, looking at a galaxy map showing free systems in green, hegemony control in red. The green was spreading like wildfire. "The hard part isn't winning the revolution," he agreed. "It's making sure what comes after is worth fighting for." Together, they continued their work, coordinating military support while building diplomatic bridges. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was leading the way not through conquest, but by showing others they could chart their own course. The revolution wasn't just overthrowing an empire. It was building a new way for species to work together as equals. Earth had sparked the flame, but every free world would help decide what rose from the ashes of the hegemony's control. Light streamed through the grand crystal windows of the former hegemony chamber, now transformed into the Hall of Equal Voices. Representatives from hundreds of worlds filled the space, their diverse forms creating a living tapestry of galactic life. The chamber itself had been redesigned, replacing the towering throne-like seats of the Hegemony Council with a circular arrangement where all seats stood at the same height. Ambassador Song Hari took her place at the speaker's position, her simple Earth diplomatic uniform, a stark contrast to the elaborate robes she could have worn as council president. She looked out at the assembled representatives, noting familiar faces among them. Park Jin and Kang Do-hyun, once proud hegemony leaders, now sat as regular representatives of their worlds. Their scales no longer shimmered with artificial enhancements, and their expressions showed a new kind of awareness, the look of those who had learned hard but necessary lessons. "Representatives of the free galaxy," HFY began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "Today marks not just the beginning of a new council, but the dawn of a new era. We gather here not as rulers and subjects, but as equals, each bringing our own strengths to build something greater than any one species could achieve alone." The chamber's displays showed images from across the galaxy, new trade routes connecting previously isolated systems, joint scientific ventures between former rivals, cultural exchanges bringing together species that had never freely mixed under hegemony rule. "Look around you," HFY continued. "Where once this chamber held only those deemed worthy by the hegemony, today it welcomes all who wish to participate in our shared future. Our differences are no longer barriers to be overcome, but strengths to be celebrated." Kim Soo-ho, seated among the Earth delegation, watched with quiet satisfaction. He remembered sitting in this same chamber years ago, keeping his observations about Earth's potential to himself. Now those insights had helped reshape the galaxy. "Our first act as the new council," HFY announced, "will be to establish the framework of equal development. No technology will be restricted. No world will be held back. We will face our challenges and achieve our triumphs together." Park Jin shifted in her seat, her scales showing patterns that sinologists now recognized as thoughtful consideration rather than the arrogance they had once displayed. She had been among the first of the former hegemony leaders to recognize the wisdom of the new way. The old hegemony believed that power came from control, Harry said, her gaze meeting Park Jin's. Earth showed that true power comes from cooperation, from allowing each species to develop in their own way, bringing new perspectives to old problems. Displays showed the achievements of this new approach. Worlds that had been resource colonies now producing their own ships, former primitive planets developing unique technologies, ancient enemies working together on joint projects. We do not seek to replace the hegemony's rule with Earth's, Harry emphasized. Each world here has its own voice, its own vote, its own path to follow. Earth's role is not to lead, but to help ensure all voices are heard.